Welcome in, Minnesota sports fans, to another edition of Vikings on SI. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Will Ragatz and Joe Nelson. Boys, it is time for our Predictions Friday, where we take a look at this weekend's Vikings game, taking on another 2-7 team, this time the Titans. And we make our predictions for the week. We'll get Tony and Nolan's predictions as well, if they brought them in. I don't know if they sent them in to you, Will, but we'll get those a little later on in the show. We'll get your guys' predictions. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Bring Me the Sports YouTube channel. Does help us get found. Also notifies you every time we post a new video or go live as well. We've got the latest video, Will Raggett's 5 key matchups for this weekend. So let's jump right into this. Will, I'll start with you. What's your prediction for Vikings-Titans this weekend?
Yeah, part of me is like, all right, are they just going to keep playing these ugly, close, slow first half, battle it out games with these AFC South teams? Part of me is like, they're due to finally win one of these by multiple scores. So I've been going back and forth a little bit. I think maybe somewhere in between is about where I'm going to end up settling. I'll say like Vikings 24, Titans 13, something like that. Where I don't see the Vikings coming out and necessarily scoring 30-plus points on this Titans team, the way that their defense is set up with Jeffrey Simmons and some of those guys in the middle. It's not a bad defense. You look at the advanced metrics, they're top half of the league. The Lions put up 52 on them, but that was largely because they had 4 takeaways on the Titans offense and like 1 million yards in punt and kick returns that set them up with short fields. So Jared Goff only needed to throw for 85 yards on the day. I do think the other side of the ball, the Vikings have a pretty good advantage there with Will Levis being really turnover prone, looking really shaky. He's second year, but he kind of looks like a rookie in a lot of the things that he does. So I think Brian Flores and his fully healthy defense have an advantage on that side of the ball. I see the Vikings, maybe it's a 1-score game, maybe it's two scores. I don't know if it's going to be a total romp, which is certainly possible if Sam Darnold takes care of the ball. But yeah, I've got 24-13 is the score that just popped into my head literally right now.
Well, it's been about a month since the Vikings actually played a complete game of football, right? And you could actually probably argue that they didn't do it in London against the Jets, and that they certainly didn't do it against the Packers in Week 4, because we saw that 28-0 lead evaporate. So you can argue that it's been literally 7 weeks of real life since the Vikings have played a solid 4 quarters of football on any given day. I got a feeling that this is the game where that actually happens. I know the advanced metrics and the defensive line of Jeffrey Simmons and Sebastian Joseph Day and Tavondre Sweat is a pretty imposing trio for this Minnesota offensive line to deal with. That could cause problems with pressure up the middle. But when it comes to pressure numbers outside of Jeffrey Simmons, there's not a lot being generated. I think Tavondre Sweat has 7 pressures. I was looking it up earlier today. Sebastian Joseph Day has 13. I don't know where that pressure is going to come from. And there's a lot of other advanced metrics that say the Titans are the worst team in football by a mile in a lot of different categories. So if the Vikings, known to be one of the better turnover forcing teams in the league, can attack Will Levis, who is known to make some of the dumbest throws in the league, you very well could see this one turn into a Lions-like lopsided Vikings blowout. But again, it's going to require Sam Darnold not throwing the football away 5 times like he has in the past 2 weeks. Certainly not in the red zone. Can't throw it away in the end zone like he has 3 times in the last couple of games. And if they play a clean game of football, there's every reason to believe that Will Levis won't and that this will be a blowout. I mean, the Titans are 2-7, and the teams they've beaten were Miami when Tua Tagovailoa was hurt, and then when I can't say his last name, it's like Giannis. Don't even get on me about that. And then their other win was against New England in overtime. So they haven't really done anything to show me or really anybody in the world that they're going to be a real threat to beat Minnesota. But I thought the same thing about Jacksonville, and we saw what happened there. But again, that was mainly a Sam Darnold issue and nothing else.
So your score?
Oh my God. Okay, I said 50-10 Vikings over Jacksonville because I invoked the memories of the 1998 Sunday Night Football victory when Mike Patrick was on the call for ESPN, Randall Cunningham to Randy Moss, some of the greatest memories of my life. This one's not going to be as lopsided, but I do think the Vikings smash the Titans, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say they put up 34 and the Titans end up with 13.
All right, I like it. I think apparently I'm the lowest on what the Titans are going to be able to do against this defense. I only have the Titans scoring 3 points in this game just because of the turnover proneness of Will Levis and their entire offense. It's just they turn the ball over so many times. It's they're fourth in the league in turnovers. Vikings, unfortunately, fifth right behind them. But the Vikings defense just monsters at taking the ball away. I think this will lead to Vikings having a lot of good field position and getting a lot of scores. I'm having the Vikings win this 30-3, another blowout.
Jeez.
Hopefully for the Vikings. That's what I'm predicting. I predicted a blowout last week. It didn't happen, obviously. I'm hoping that there's a little bit of a turnaround this week for the Vikings. To those people viewing, we appreciate you viewing us live as we go live on Bring Me the Sports Facebook and YouTube as well. If you have a prediction that you want to throw into the chat, go ahead. We'll pop that up on the screen as well. Appreciate you viewing. So talk me into it, because last week we all talked about and said this should be a blowout, Will. Talk me into this not being a blowout, this one being as close as it was last week between the Vikings and a 2-7 team.
Yeah, I think it starts with what Joe said, which is this team hasn't played a complete 4-quarter football game since they beat the best team in the AFC South, the Texans, back in week 3. And it's been some defensive things at times, especially without Blake Cashman against the Lions and the Rams. It's been offensively the last couple of weeks, 6 turnovers by Sam Darnold, as we've seen. And that's just been such a killer issue for this team, especially when they're surrendering those possessions deep in opposing territory in the red zone, giving up opportunities to at least kick field goals, things like that. So I think that's the case for this game being close, is just the Vikings on one side of the ball or the other, more likely on offense, just not being able to get out of their own way at times. And that's just been kind of a trend that I don't know is going to suddenly reverse against a solid Titans defense. We'll see. I think the other case for the Titans scoring more than 3 points, and it's certainly possible that they only score 3 points against this number 1 ranked Vikings defense, is that Will Levis is in fact coming off of the best game of his career, maybe, or at least his season. 2 touchdowns against the Chargers, no interceptions in a game for the first time all season for Levis. Calvin Ridley over the past 3 weeks, tied with Justin Jefferson for second in the NFL in receiving, behind Jamar Chase. Tony Pollard is a solid running back. They've got their second-year player, Tajay Spears, back from injury, which I just remember him running for like a 40-yard touchdown against the Vikings last preseason at US Bank Stadium. But they've got a few weapons on offense. It's not a great offense by any means. The offensive line, the PFF numbers are really mediocre. They're on their like 3rd right tackle. I think they were rotating right tackles last week when I was researching this team, which who does that? That doesn't seem like it would help either player. But I just think that the case is it's a road game in the NFL. Titans, I don't know. They're not going to give up on this season. It's mid-November. They're still going to be fired up to try to win this one. The Vikings on paper absolutely can win this by multiple scores, but just with the way that their season has gone, the more likely outcome is probably that they hang around the Vegas spread, which I think is 5.5 or 6.
That's not a very good spread if you're the Vikings. I mean, okay, so again, Jeffrey Simmons, Sebastian Joseph Day, Devondre Sweat, those guys are nice.
Amani Hooker's got 3 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, Darrell Baker, I think, is a cornerback on their team, and he's, I think, ranked 8th overall defense among cornerbacks with at least 20% of the snaps played this season in the NFL for PFF metrics. That's nice. Like, the individual things are nice. And by the way, I'll throw this one out there. This is great. If you're a Minnesota sports fan, guess who PFF's number 2 ranked linebacker in the NFL is this season? Number 1 is Fred Warner. I'll give you that, from the 49ers. Who's number 2 based on at least 20% of the snaps played? Overall defensive grade. Don't look. Guess.
Blake Cashman would be too easy of an answer.
No.
Not Blake Cashman.
It's Jack Gibbons, Tennessee's middle linebacker, the former Minnesota Golden Gopher.
I knew I had heard that name somewhere when I was looking at their roster.
Right? And it's like he played for the Gophers, and he was a good player, but I think even, to bring this back full circle to everything we do with Gophers on SI, I don't think anybody looked at Jack Gibbons in the last, 4 or 5 years when he was playing for the Maroon and Gold and said, yep, he's as good as Cody Lindenberg, or he's as good as Kamal Martin, or he's as good as Maverick Baranowski. But he was really good for the Gophers, and now look at him in the NFL. The advanced metrics absolutely love what he's doing. So congrats to him. I don't think it's going to be enough no matter what, because the other advanced metrics, and bear with me here, I've got a list of about 12 here. Overall, the Titans ranked 31st. Offense, 31st. Pass offense, 32nd. Pass blocking, 27th. Receiving, 26th. Let's give them a silver medal for running the ball. That's 16 in the NFL. Run blocking, 29th. Defense, 15th. Run defense, 12th. They are phenomenal tackling. 8th in the league. Pass rush, 28th. Coverage, 15th. Special teams, is there a moral victory in here? No,
last.
29th.
Oh.
They are absolutely awful from top to bottom. And unless Will Levis turns into Jesus football, this thing has bloodbath written all over it. I think we get caught up in the big names, especially when you're the Vikings and you lack interior defensive pressure and you say ahead of the trade deadline, look at all these Titans guys that we wish we would trade for, Jeffrey Simmons and Sebastian Joseph Day. But overall, their impact on the entire defense hasn't been that impressive. And then when you just go from the 30,000-foot view and you see the games they've played, they played the Bears in week 1. They lost by a touchdown against a rookie quarterback. They played the Jets in week 2. The Jets were awful to start the season, and they're still awful. They got killed by the Packers in week 3. They beat the Tua-less Miami Dolphins in week 4. They lost to the Colts, and that was during Anthony Richardson's really poor play back in week 6. They got killed at Buffalo, got absolutely smoked by the Lions. They barely beat the Patriots in overtime. And then, of course, Will Levis has the best game of his career, and they still only score 17 points in the loss to the Chargers. So I can't see anything from a 30,000-foot view that strikes fear into the Minnesota side of things.
Yeah, the only thing is that I would say is it's similar to last week where, I mean, we were talking on this video last week about, I was saying there's no math really that makes sense to me of how this Vikings Jaguars game is close. And then I failed to account for Sam Darnold throwing three interceptions deep in Jacksonville territory. So I would argue that my math was right for the most part. Not that it was actual math, but yeah. So I agree. Like on paper, Vikings should be able to come out and honestly, you'd like to see from just a season outlook perspective, you'd like to see them come out and win this game convincingly and kind of offer a reminder that they can be the team that they were the first few weeks in September and the first half in Green Bay, because it just hasn't been the case the last couple of weeks against some teams that they should have beaten by more than they did. I bet the Vikings will be fired up to do just that. Having Blake Cashman back helps. I think we could see another Cam Bynum viral interception celebration this week. And Darnold's just gotta play within the rhythm of the offense, and like Dan Orlovsky said, he's got to trust his feet, he's not get greedy, get the ball out. If the Titans are gonna do what the Jags did and play the too high safety shell coverage and try to limit Jefferson, sure, that's fine. Feed the ball to T.J. Hockenson and Josh Oliver and Aaron Jones all day long, and the Vikings should be able to win this game.
So we talk about not playing a complete game, but it's kind of unfair to 52 other guys on the team because they really have played a complete game the last couple of weeks. It's just Sam Darnold. I mean, these Vikings have played well enough to have blowout type victories, dominating fashion, just like they did en route to their 5-0 start the past 2 games. It's just that Darnold's, turned it over. I mean, it really is as simple as that. These are Sam Darnold mistakes that are bringing down the overall look of the entire team. They've gotten fortunate to win both of those games, but that is a credit to the 52 other guys who are not, crapping down their leg in these big clutch moments in the red zone.
And that kind of echoes what David says over on Facebook. This team will be limited by QB play. They will lose to any team with a better QB, as illustrated by losing to the Lions and Rams. They barely beat the Packers. With Love playing on one leg, they probably won't be so lucky next time. Unfortunately, there aren't many bad quarterbacks in the playoffs. One and done. Leads me to my next question. If the Vikings can't find a way to blow out the Titans like we predicted last week, and I asked you what your concern level would be if they couldn't blow out the Jaguars, if they can't blow out the Titans and win by a decisive manner, does that make you rethink what the Vikings can do should they make the playoffs? And at 7-2, they should be in the playoffs. They should be getting there. Does that make you rethink what they should be able to do in the playoffs should they get there, Will?
Yeah, it probably will. I mean, I'm already concerned about the Darnold turnover thing. It would be hard not to be after 6 of them the last 2 weeks, 5 interceptions. Granted, like, it would be nice if this week there could be no officiating controversy at all, because the Jaguars guy in the end zone did not catch that ball. The Colts guy, Grover Stewart, who have put a forearm into Darnold's face on the fumble return touchdown, it probably should have been called. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you what happened to end that Rams game. And then Xavier McKinney didn't have an interception in week 4, so. Darnold, a few of Darnold's turnovers, maybe a little unfortunate for him, but that is kind of the way it goes sometimes. I think it would be really encouraging, maybe relieving in a sense, if this game would just not be a stressful mess with a bunch of turnovers. If the Vikings could go out and play a good football game, handle their business. I mean, it's a harsh but fair comment from whoever just commented on Facebook. I forgot his name, David. The Vikings ceiling is in the playoffs is not at the moment looking as high as some of the other teams in the NFC because of the quarterback play. I mean, we just saw the Eagles last night against the Commanders really kind of reestablish themselves as a tier 1 contender in the NFC. But I do think, I don't know, I just am not going to write it off because of some of the flashes we saw from Darnold. I mean, all year, but earlier this season in particular, of being able to play the position well under Kevin O'Connell with the weapons he has at his disposal. And he doesn't have to be prime Tom Brady, prime Mahomes, peak Lamar Jackson for this Vikings team to be able to potentially make a playoff run because of how good the defense is. I mean, this is the best defense in the league by almost every metric. They have the best wide receiver in the league. They have a lot of talent. Hawkinson's back. They just need Darnold to be a B-level quarterback with some maybe A-level throws mixed in, and not the F-level throws that have been plaguing him the last couple of weeks. I'm not writing off this team's ceiling. I don't think it's they're not a Super Bowl contender on the level of some other teams, but they got to win this game. They got to win the Bears game, find a way to get in the playoffs, and then give themselves a chance.
So the one and done thing, let's just all assume, and I think we can safely assume this, even though the Vikings are only 1 game back, the Lions are going to win the North, and they're probably going to be the 1 seed in the NFC. Doesn't matter if they're the 1 or 2. It doesn't matter. If they win the North and the Vikings can stay in front of Green Bay, there's a very good chance Minnesota ends up, even if they don't stay in front of Green Bay, still a very good chance that they're the 5 or the 6 seed. Because the 3rd and 4th seeds are going to go to the winners of the West and the South. That means your first-round playoff game is 6-3 or 5-4. You'll be going on the road. That's not good. You'll be going on the road against what? Either Arizona, Atlanta, maybe San Francisco. That'd be terrifying. Maybe Tampa Bay. But other than that, I mean, those are really the most maybe the Rams put it together, or maybe the Seahawks do, and still, none of those are all that terrifying, right? I know the Vikings lost to the Rams, but you got to remember that's on 4 days rest. They just weren't playing well at that time. They could totally win that game. That was a very winnable football game. So I don't look at this as like hey, no matter what, Sam Darnold's going to be the worst quarterback in whoever they face in the playoffs. Kirk Cousins against Minnesota's defense, or Sam Darnold? Who do you like?
The script writers. You know what the script writers are cooking up in the NFL?
Vikings.
It's Vikings Falcons divisional round. Kirk Cousins game. I mean, come on.
In Atlanta, in
It's too
Atlanta.
good. In Atlanta.
It
Rematch
would
from
be- it
a
would be
month
something-
earlier.
It would be something special, and we'll get that preview like you just mentioned. But one and done is strong. It's easy to think that because of the way Sam Darnold's played the last couple of weeks. But you know, you look at his home road splits. He's actually got a higher quarterback rating on the road than at home. You know, he hasn't had a lot of opportunity to show what he's done when trailing late in games, and he was really good earlier when they needed touchdowns. Again, just don't make the disaster throw. And this team has all the makings and all the ability, really, to play with any team in the league. That's a fact at this point. We're in week 11. It's a fact. They are good enough to beat any team in the NFL, including the Detroit Lions, if Sam Darnold doesn't throw the game away. But yes, the ceiling is very high and the floor is very low as we continue to breach.
So what's the predictions from Tony and Nolan? Well,
I'll be honest, I have not gotten those. I forgot to.
I know
send out
that
any
Tony is
message.
probably going to say they're going to lose like 17-13. And
He's
Nolan
predicted
will
one
say,
win all year, right?
Nolan will say Vikings 23, Titans 20.
That feels reasonable. No, Tony he started the year picking,
Every
I think it was
loss.
six straight losses or something. But then after they actually lost to the Lions, I think he's picked wins since then against the Rams, Colts, and Jaguars. So we'll see.
Well, look, if we go back to our season predictions, where do we have those? Can we go back and pull those up? Because I'm fairly sure that I'm
You said
almost
12-5, right?
I said 12-5.
Yeah.
I'm damn near perfect though in picking the losses too. I know that my opinions have changed on a week to week prediction basis, but when you go back to the start of the season, I think I had them losing to Green Bay in week 4, and then the Rams on short rest, and those were the only 2 losses I had to this point. So I'm pretty close. I definitely had them at 7-2 entering this stretch. So anybody who doesn't listen to me is probably an idiot.
We're at the point of the show where Joe's patting himself on the back. So final questions for you
time
guys.
to go.
Final question before we head out of here. What's your comfort level with this team going into this game?
I still maintain maybe more confidence than I should have, having watched the totality of the past month. And that really comes down to my belief in the coaching staff. It's something I've talked about all year. I think they have it's not number 1 in the league, but it's top 3 in terms of the offensive and defensive coach duo. I'm not going to put them over Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, and you could argue maybe one other team in that mix, but they're right there in the elite class with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. And that's the main thing that gives me confidence in this team, that I think O'Connell will, to some extent, be able to coach Darnold through this rough patch. Just because he's hit a rough patch does not mean he can't snap out of it and start to play like he did again earlier this season. It's not just suddenly, he's Jets Darnold, the season's over. I think O'Connell can help him work through this with the talent that he has around him. And then defensively, they're just going to keep causing havoc with the players they have, the scheme they have, especially in matchups like this one. So could they lose to the Titans? Absolutely. They have completely played with their food the last couple of weeks against the Jags and Colts, and we're frankly lucky to not get burned by it. You do that again, you open up the door to what would be a really, really, really bad loss. I don't think it'll happen. I think they come in here motivated to put 4 quarters of football together, and they play a good game against a team that has a negative 83-point differential.
My comfort level is about the same as when my wife is driving and I'm in the passenger seat and we're approaching a roundabout and there's other cars coming, and then there's like a van on the left and you can't really see the other cars, but she's creeping out. You're like, I think we're about to get hit, but then ultimately you trust that she's going to get through that roundabout unscathed. Sam Darnold is my wife in a car at a roundabout, and that's where I'm at.
That's good.
I got nothing else to add. That's a perfect way to end the show. Go read their work over at Vikings, Twins, Timberwolves, Gophers, Badgers on SI. Cover it all for you. We've got a couple game recaps coming up this weekend. Will, you'll have Vikings Titans recap coming up on the YouTube channel as well this weekend. Looking forward to it. Boys, we'll talk to you Monday with another topic across Minnesota sports.
So long.